J King Live.
Not straight, no J
J King Live.
Not straight, no
J King Live.
Tonight is our last episode for season 1, and I decided to save the best for last. And this is going to be an interesting conversation. Mark T. Harris is my guest, and today our show is Trump versus Biden. But it's really even more than that. Mark Harris is one of those guys who is legendary when you talk about politics and the game. He's probably the most politically astute person I know who hasn't run for office. But when you hear him, you're going to know that this guy, he knows it inside and out, outside and in, and he's got great perspectives and opinions. And you're going to hear him here tonight, live, straight, no chaser.
J King Live.
Not straight, no J
J King Live.
Not straight, no chaser.
Straight, no chaser. Straight, no chaser. Straight, J King Live.
Attorney Mark T. Harris, an active licensed member of the State Bar of California, is the director of pre-law studies at the University of California, Merced, and the Northern California and Central Valley managing attorney for the national law firm Ben Crump Law. Mr. Harris is headquartered in Sacramento, California, where he's practiced law for almost 40 years. Further, Attorney Harris is one of the founders of the Central Valley Leaders, a statewide youth leadership development academy. And I'm glad to have him. Let me tell you guys, so I had to do that because that's what's written on the page here, but I know Mark way better than that. And this conversation is going to get a lot deeper than that.
Yes,
And I'm just going to get right to it, Mark. You voted in the last election.
Yes.
How surprised were you that Donald Trump won?
Let me say this. First of all, thank you for having me, Jay. Straight no chaser, man. Doesn't get better than that. I keep thinking I should have a glass of bourbon up here or something, man.
Now, so
Straight
you
no
threatened
chaser.
me and told me you were going to have one. And I told you it was fine.
I was trying to keep my reputation intact, man.
No, but you could have.
No.
Now, Mark, you know I've never had a drink
I know that.
of any sort.
That's right.
So, so straight no chaser to me,
Yes.
it's just, no
BS,
no BS,
straight
just
up.
straight up and down.
Yeah, yeah.
We can have a conversation. Can't get butt hurt. Don't be butt hurt in the conversation.
If there was
Just-
if there's a nickname that fits you, it's straight no chaser, Jay. Crane. I mean,
Okay.
and I'm proud to be here, man.
Well, I'm proud to have you.
Thank you. To answer your question, I didn't vote for President of the United States the last time. I didn't
Wow.
cast a vote for Hillary Clinton nor Donald Trump.
Why not Hillary?
I didn't believe that Hillary was the best representative of the African American community. I actually know Hillary Clinton. Mama Mills and I, my wife, Dr. Mariana Harris, have had the pleasure of having dinner with Hillary Clinton. I served, as you know, in Bill Clinton's administration.
Yes.
So I actually knew Hillary Clinton. I know Hillary Clinton, and she did not convince me that she was worthy of my vote.
Did Donald Trump cheat to win?
Yes. Every president that I'm aware of, at least in recent history, has cheated to win. And it's not even cute about how to define cheating. If you go to John Kennedy and what his father did in Illinois with the former mayor of Chicago, Daley, when you go to George Bush with his brother, the governor of Florida, my dear friends who worked that campaign told me it was a done deal. They had Florida wrapped and packed in 2000 for Gore. And the next thing you know, Jeb Bush does a hocus pocus and his brother becomes the president of the United States. So this idea of pristine politics a contact sport, J. King. It's a contact sport. You supposed to say if you ain't cheating, you ain't trying. That's probably true in politics.
Wow.
You got to go hard.
So I believe Bernie Sanders beats Donald Trump. Okay? I just believe the world had changed, the world of politics. Donald Trump proved it with the Republican debates when they tried to put him on TV, thinking that he would kill himself because of the outlandish things he was saying. And he was like Godzilla. He just kept getting stronger and stronger. When he said that John McCain was no war hero, people said his campaign is doomed. The next day he was up 6 points, higher than he was the day before. Do you think Hillary Clinton cheated Bernie Sanders?
I think that she went hard in the paint. I think she did everything. Donna Brazile, the former Democratic National Committee stalwart, the person who was highest ranked in terms of the Hillary Clinton campaign, highest African American Hillary Clinton campaign person, left in real anguish over what she said was inappropriate behavior on the part of the campaign and on the part of the Democratic National Committee.
But what about her? Feeding answers.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
That's what she criticized.
But she was part of it.
Well, the thing is this. There are a couple of things. Each individual increment of a campaign can be looked at, analyzed, and evaluated. But overall, the question is, did you run hard? You should. You owe it to the people who support you to run hard. Did you run well? That's defined by who won versus who lost. And did you run fairly? And I'm not sure that what Hillary Clinton did in the Democratic primary process 4 years ago was fair relative to Bernie Sanders. I'm not convinced that it was.
Do you believe Bernie Sanders beats Donald Trump?
That I haven't thought about that. I don't know. Now, I'm a fan of Bernie Sanders. I supported him. I voted for him in the primary. This time, I voted for him in the primary the last time. Let me talk a little bit about why. One of the things that Americans generally are very afraid of is the whole thought of socialism and Marxism. As a young African-American kid growing up in South Central LA, I was very much in tune with socialist Marxist thinking, particularly in Southeast Africa, Southwest Africa, the Caribbean, Cuba. It didn't seem so bad to me that folks could rise up and divide the wealth, take the less than 1% and spread it among the 99.5%. That sounded pretty doggone good to me. So the people who said that Bernie, being a democratic socialist, that was a death sentence for him in terms of his hope to become president. As you pointed out, look at Donald Trump. He couldn't have been as far off the political mainstream of anyone in American history who's run for president, and he was successful. So could Bernie have won? Yeah, I think Bernie could have won.
I think Bernie beats Donald Trump. I said it on Kings in the Morning. I said if Hillary Clinton took it away from Bernie Sanders the way they did, because they bequested her the superdelegates, the 40, which was 40% of the delegates.
That's true.
And she still only won by 7 points. So if you take those 40 points away, maybe Bernie Sanders wins by 30, 31 points, 32 points, right? So I think that Bernie Sanders is more palatable than Trump, but we don't want the same old, which is what people saw Hillary Clinton as.
I agree with that.
So,
I think it's very possible that had Bernie been the candidate, we'd be in a whole different situation. Now, he was my candidate, as I said. He was my candidate before. And let me tell you why, Jay. It's because he was speaking to the issues. This is the most important point of what I hope we talk about tonight on Straight No Chaser. We got to stop accepting the BS that's thrown at us by either party, but particularly as African Americans, the Democratic Party. I'm not having it anymore. I'm struggling in this election to decide to cast a vote for President of the United States. I would, if I could credibly get away with casting a vote for neither of the two, that's what I do. That's what I did the last time. But the world has changed under 4 years of Donald Trump. I know we'll talk about it. So I don't believe that's a viable vote for me this time. But on the issues, Bernie Sanders speaks right down the middle of the issues in the manner that I think the issue should be addressed.
Biden or Trump?
In terms of who wins or who I support.
Who do you pick?
I think that Biden wins this thing. I think he's expanding his lead. He started off after the Democratic convention anywhere between 4 and 6 points, depending on what poll you looked at. He's at 10 today, and it's increasing. Every day that something else comes out about this president, particularly in light of the 200,000 dead Americans relative to COVID, I think it becomes easier and easier to vote for Biden over Trump for most Americans.
Do you know what people said about Hillary Clinton leading into the last week of the presidential election? She wins. I have a friend named John Silver, who's in North Carolina. Trump's whole team said that he loses North Carolina. John Silver was the one who did his campaign, his digital and media campaign and all of the social media campaign. And he said, he called me and he said, Trump is going to win North Carolina. I said, none of the polls say that. And he said, they're all wrong. And guess what? He was right. And you know what he said? Hillary didn't have a social media campaign that was strong enough. And he knew how powerful social media was. Here we are right now. You see Donald Trump every day on television, no matter how outlandish he is, and he's outlandish at times, says the silliest things. But Biden is nowhere to be found. Do you think that that helps or hurts him?
You know, I'm working with an organization called Women of Color for Biden-Harris, and I'm very proud that they have allowed me to be a part of that. I brought some of my students into that. I try to give our students at the University of California at Merced, where you know I'm on the faculty, a chance to really be involved in relevant topical matters. And the reality of the situation is they're not making the same mistakes that the Clinton campaign, the Hillary Clinton campaign made. For example, not going to Wisconsin the last 30 days of the campaign and then losing Wisconsin. For a Democrat to lose Wisconsin was unheard of. When you look back at the states that Hillary Clinton lost, a lot of them because she thought she had them wrapped up, I don't see this campaign making the same mistake there. I think that the social media game is tighter. I think the fundraising has been off the charts. Now, the fundraising for Hillary Clinton was impressive, as it was twice for Barack Obama. But all in all, I think Americans are tired of this president. I think they're tired of the show. The show has become an S show, and I'll let your viewers figure out what that S stands for. When you're talking about the number of deaths, when you're talking about the destruction, two different economies, one moving steadily up. I heard Amazon today has had an 80% uptick in its value since COVID. That means Jeff Bezos is even richer than he was before all this started. When you look at that and you look at the people at the bottom end of the spectrum who are struggling every day to just make ends meet, I think America's kind of ready for this show to come to an end.
But how much do you put on black leadership not making financial literacy the number one issue in our community? And why, I mean, we have the Greater Sacramento Financial Literacy Group.
Yes.
6 months ago, we were 35, 40. Today, we're almost 400. 6 months ago, people were, just struggling through. COVID happened. The market fell. Now you have people whose portfolios are up 1,000%, 2,000%, 3,000% black people. How much of it should we start changing the way we think and plug into this economy and become investors, become speculators?
Jay, you know where I am on this. I'm an economist at the University of California. I'm a part of the Management and Business Economics school, the School of Management and Business Economics. I was an investment banker on Wall Street, as you know. And I agree with you that the number one thing that we should all be focused on is financial literacy. I had a great conversation with my barber today. I had to get my cut tight because people were laughing at Attorney General Cameron for having his edge all jacked up in Kentucky. I mean, it's to try to bring something that brings a smile to one's face in that horrible situation regarding Breonna Taylor. But one of the things people were joking about around the internet was how bad his line looked. I couldn't come on straight no chaser with a bad line. So I was in the barbershop today, and we did, as you know, Jay, financial literacy in the barbershop a year ago. Yeah. We did it. We called it Barbershop Biz. It was the brainchild of my eldest son, Eric, who said, Dad, we need to bring barbershop to the community. We need to bring, financial literacy to the community. Let's go to the barbershop. And the good thing about it, Jay, is some of the things that we talked about a year ago have come to pass, and those folks who followed the prescription that we set out have made money during this last year rather than lose money. You know all about that.
Yeah, so how much will financial literacy change our community? I say if we became financially literate as a community, we change 100 years in 10. What do you say to that?
There are a couple of things that are part of that, Jay. Knowledge is powerful, but so is the discipline to implement once you have the knowledge. We not only have to become financially literate in terms of the knowledge of how the financial markets operate, but we got to have the you-know-whats to stick the landing and be disciplined and pass up certain things. When things open up again and Vegas becomes attractive and other destinations become attractive and party outfits become the thing that everybody wants, the new shiny car. Right now, nobody needs a new shiny car because you can't go anywhere. Right. But when all those things change, you need to have the discipline to stay on point relative to financial literacy. And I think if black folks will accept first the knowledge and second the pledge to be disciplined in the implementation, I agree with you. I think it's liberating.
How much has Donald Trump's presidency damaged the African American community, if at all?
Let's look at it in two ways. I think for certain members of our community, it hasn't damaged it much at all. My feelings aren't hurt that this white man's a racist. George Washington was a racist. Thomas Jefferson was a racist. Every slave-owning president that we've ever had, by definition, is a racist. So it does not hurt me in terms of my spirit or in terms of my feelings that Donald Trump is the clown that he is. What does hurt, unfortunately, the vast majority of our community is the policies that have a horrific effect upon us as a people in education, in housing, in the Justice Department. The president isn't the only one. The president is the person who runs the entire executive branch. As I mentioned, I worked for President Clinton at the Department of Commerce as the deputy chief of staff. We had 45,000 people under me. We had the secretary, we had the chief of staff, we had the deputy chief of staff. We were the three at the top of the pyramid, and there were roughly 45,000 people under us in that one department. That's where it hurts, in the implementation of those policies. And I hope that we'll have a change in November that'll manifest itself in January.
So, would you meet with Donald Trump?
Yes.
If you met with him, what would you say?
You need to be more humane. You need to be more empathetic to what people are going through, Mr. President. You need to quit being so. You ain't a comedian, Mr. President. This
First of all, I don't know.
Yeah, that's right.
Let me say this to you,
Yeah,
Mark.
right.
You don't know me.
Right.
I'm the smartest. I'm bigly. As a matter of fact, I talked to the big fella, and he said it should have been you, Donald, not Jesus.
You know.
And I believe him. You know, I never lie. I never lie. I tried to tell a lie one day, and my lips swole up. It was crazy. I've only told the truth. I'm only telling the truth to the people. All the blacks love me. You're the only one who doesn't, Mark.
Let me tell you, Jay, I have been in meetings with very influential and powerful people, and I've walked out. And if that's the tone that the president would take, I would walk out. I respect the presidency. Mm-hmm. I respect the office of the president. I respect whoever is able to accomplish the amazing feat of having the almost 330 million Americans, not all of them registered voters, not all of them casting their vote, select that person to lead the country. So would I meet with him? Heck yeah. And I would say the other words, but I'm not sure I can do that.
You can do that on here. You can cuss.
Then
and
hell
everything.
yeah, I would meet with him.
So
the question would be, would I stay in the meeting? That's a little bit under a certain level of question.
Congressional Black Caucus, at the urging of Nancy Pelosi, would not and did not meet with the President of the United States. Do you agree or disagree?
What the hell are you doing there if you're not moving the agenda? What the hell are you doing in Washington, D.C. as a member of Congress if you're not moving the agenda of our community and our people? That's part of the problem. You're not there for yourself, members of the Congressional Black Caucus. You're there for us, by us. So at minimum, what the Democrats should do relative to this judicial appointment that's coming up. One of the things the Democrats are talking about doing is not participating in any of the confirmation hearings. That's ludicrous. Why don't you quit your position if you feel that way, Senator, with all due respect? And if you're a member of the Black Caucus on the congressional side or the Senate side, your duty is to be there and to carry forward the will of your constituency.
Black leadership sometimes stays too long. And so we don't get, in my opinion, the power of the seats that they sit in. Because they get comfortable, they become complacent. They feel like they own the seat, so they'll do things like not meet with the president because they don't represent the people; they represent themselves. At that point, it becomes politics in a real way. Here you have John Lewis, who died in office. What do you say to that?
I think that for me, that first of all, John Lewis was a soldier.
Right.
John Lewis had suffered more at the hands of racists than almost any other person that I'm aware of, definitely more than I ever had in terms of physical damage that was caused to him. And so in that regard, he always should be kept in a position of reverence. To your question, I'm going to sidestep just a little bit, Jay, and say this. The ones that bother me more are the Clay family. The Clay family in St. Louis. You had William Clay, who was the congressman from St. Louis, the North Side, which is as dejected and under the gun as any part of America. His son Lacey. What is this, a monarchy? The Clay family controlled that congressional seat for 50 years before Cori Bush came in and disrupted that process by winning just recently in the Democratic primary.
But you got John Lewis dying, who knows he's dying, who stays in the seat to the day he dies. Soldier or not, isn't there a responsibility to our leadership to make sure that we have another, at least young person, somebody to come in and sit in that seat?
Let me tell you, the answer is yes, there is a responsibility. I know who you are. And I know you're not just talking the talk on this, you walk the walk. Everybody around this studio is young, with one exception. I'll let him figure out who I'm talking about. But everybody that you bring around you is young. You are about that, and that's a defining principle for you. It should be for all of us. It shouldn't even be just a matter of a death sentence. Well, okay, now that I know I'm dying, I'm going to make the transition. We ought to have in our own mind a certain level of term limits to the things that we hold dear, whether it's the chairpersonship and the presidency of the California Black Chamber, or the state NAACP, or being a member of Congress, or being a faculty member at the University of California. At some point, there's got to be a get up off of it and let the next one come in and come up.
If we're going to move forward.
But the key element is something else Jay King does, and that is you train the next generation. You mentor the next generation.
Right.
We can't have people who would set us back even further than a sick member of Congress might set us back. So it's a two-part process, and I completely agree that there should be a transition.
Do you think Maxine Waters should be looking to step down so somebody, new blood, fresh ideas, young people with that fire that's going to take us to the next decades?
It's a complicated question for this reason. Number one, her constituency believe they're being well served by her. And ultimately, they're the ones, both in the John Lewis situation and the Clay family situation, who make the ultimate decision. That's number one. Number two, and I'm now channeling our dear friend, Mayor Elihu Harris, the game of politics is when. I said that at the beginning of my comments. Maxine Waters is about to become even more powerful. She's already the chairperson of the Banking and Finance Committee. Once the Democrats took back over the House of Representatives, because of her seniority, she became the most powerful person in banking and finance in the House of Representatives.
How many times have you heard her speak about financial literacy on a national level?
I have not heard her speak much about it at all. I have not. I can't remember one time now that you mention it.
Somebody who's the chairperson of the Banking and Finance Committee, shouldn't financial literacy be spoken to your community, at least from that, if not anywhere else, from that position?
Yes. Yes. I mean, the reality of this, Jay, you're not off in terms of either the fact that financial literacy should be addressed by the chairwoman of the Banking and Finance Committee, but it's the complication comes in the areas that I mentioned. One, is she effective as a representative of her constituency? They say she is. Two, who would be the transition person, the recipient of the transition? And unfortunately, what I've heard from the Congresswoman's own mouth is that monarchy thing again. She got a grandson that she's been grooming to take her place. At one point, she had a son who she was grooming to take her place. What is it about us? And it's not just us, because the Dingle family's done it. The Kennedy family's done it, right. But what is it about this monarchy? We're going to hand it over, but we only going to hand it over to our own kinfolk.
Right. So, when I look at where we are,
yes.
and how we talk about the things that have happened in this country systemically. I can't get past some of the things that we do to each other systemically. One of the things that we do is if somebody is dark skinned, they're black to us, right? Barack Obama became the first president. We said first African American president, but he wasn't the first African American president because he's not African American. His father is an immigrant from Kenya. His mother's a white woman from the United States. If we talked about reparations, he would not get reparations because he wouldn't be qualified if it was based on American descendants of slaves. He wouldn't fall in that category. Barack Obama was against reparations. Knowing that, what do you think about his position on the idea of reparations?
I disagree with it. I think that the legacy of what those of African ancestry have had to endure for the 400 years in this country is enough to make the case for reparations. I've heard you talk about it in terms of the economics. I agree with your analysis. This ain't a gift.
Right.
This is something that's owed. And I've heard people, many people, black leaders who I follow say, America's not going to ever be right until it acknowledges its greatest wrong and seeks some level of redemption. And one level of redemption would come from reparations, in my opinion.
If there was a movie and America had to be a movie, I would say America is The Color Purple. And if we had to be somebody in the movie, I'd say we're Celie. And when she says, ain't nothing good gonna happen to you.
Yeah, I remember that.
And
That's
I believe that's where,
that.
I believe, you know, if we're gonna make America great for once, it has to be because America is great to all its people, especially its original Americans, which are you and I.
You know, on that real quick, Jay, I, along with I'm sure many others within your studio, I mean, within your audience, your viewers, I participated in the Million Man March. And the reason why I left California and flew across the country to Washington, D.C. those many years ago and was joined by literally hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people on the Washington Mall was because the leaders, including the Honorable Louis Farrakhan, called for a recognition of the harm, a recognition of the damage, both caused to us and in some cases caused by us. And they talked about what it takes to be the redemptive power of first acknowledging that you were wrong. America's got to take full credit for the harm that's been caused to the black community and the black diaspora in the United States.
Kamala Harris, when she won as a senator, her office put out a press release. The first senator of Indian descent. You know that, right? So now she's running for president, and she's an African-American woman. It seems to me that the Democratic Party takes immigrants with dark skin, so it's, and that's what they promote. They don't promote African-American women. Karen Bass, Val Demings, Susan Rice, Stacey Abrams, all African-American women that were either as qualified or more qualified than Kamala, but Kamala is an immigrant. And when I look at the Democratic Party, I say the Democratic Party panders to the immigrants because they believe that optically they've satisfied African Americans by having a dark-skinned person or a darker-skinned person or a woman who optically looks black. And so they don't have to do much. They already have them as an audience. And that's why they put her with a Biden, which doesn't make sense to me because they're already going to win California. Why do you think they picked Kamala over these other women that are African American women that could really understand the history of who we are as a people in this country?
Take the ones you mentioned. Val Demings, former police chief. I think there were a lot of problems with having a former police chief on the ticket. Yes, Kamala Harris is a former district attorney and a former state attorney general. It's different from being a police chief. So that's one thing.
Not her politics.
I'm just saying. Second, you mentioned Karen Bass, who I preferred to see in the position. Karen Bass, in light of all that she had done in Cuba, which I find noteworthy and is a positive, I think with the mainstream, that's not viewed as positively. It's what we talked about before. The big boogie person that you throw in politics in America is to call somebody a socialist or a Marxist, and that's how they tried to paint her. Let me say two things about Senator Harris. Number one, as you know, I know her very well. I've known her since she was a young assistant district attorney in Oakland, California. I knew her during the time she was the district attorney of San Francisco, the attorney general of the state of California, and since she's been United States Senator. I'm very happy that she's on the ticket. I think of all the people you just mentioned, she'll bring the most, and it won't necessarily just be black. I think she's an amazing leader. I think she has a strength that is going to benefit Joe Biden. I will say this, and I got to make a little joke out of it, Jay. You'll appreciate this, and I know my family, as they watch this, will appreciate it as well. It's almost a flipping of the script in terms of how black folks used to get down. Let me tell you what I mean. My mama used to swear that we had Indian blood in us, Jay. How many black folks do you hear talk about their Indian blood? And she used to say when it was something positive, that was the Indian in us, right? Native American Indian, indigenous Indian. So if somebody had a decent grade of hair in our family, that's the Indian genes. If somebody had a browner, more cinnamon, nutmeg hue to their skin, there go those Indians again. And I think the Democrats do the same thing. They will manipulate whatever your culture is to try to get the most out of it from a vote standpoint. They did it with Barack Hussein Obama, and they're doing it with Kamala Harris.
And so you don't think Stacey Abrams or Susan Rice can stand up to
I don't. Let me tell you, and I know Susan Rice.
Yeah.
And Susan Rice has stellar credentials as a diplomat. She's never been elected to anything.
Right.
She's arrogant. She's
and Kamala isn't?
No. I'm talking about Susan Rice.
Okay.
She's Ivy League, and I know I'm tired of that whole Ivy League thing. She's second or third generation privilege. Kamala Harris is not. Kamala Harris is a sister. No matter what they're trying to do to characterize her, Jay.
It's not them.
Yeah.
It's not them.
Yeah.
It's what she's done to characterize her and what she's done to African American men in this state.
Now, there's some other issues,
I
and you're right. But on the issue of whether she identifies as black or should be identified as black, I identify her as an African American woman.
But she's not, as you know. Joseph Mann was murdered by two police officers who we watched on camera, on their camera, track him down like an animal, pin him against a cyclone fence, get out of their cars, and execute him by shooting him in excess of 17 times. And Kamala Harris did nothing. You can't tell me that she's best for me.
Well, and Barack Obama was president of the United States at the time. You know, I'm very familiar with that case, having served first as a lawyer and then as a community leader, along with the great
We were
John
there
Burris.
together.
We were there together. So you're absolutely right in terms of the fact that there was no justice for Joseph Mann. There was no justice for Dejan Flanagan.
That's right.
There was no justice for Stephon
Stephon Clark. That's right.
So, you know, the bottom line is we got more work to do, Jay, and I know you and I are going to continue to do what we do to hold these elected officials accountable.
Racism in America. People try to put racism in America on Donald Trump. I say racism in America, if Donald Trump ever did anything good for us, he brought out what has been simmering in America for decades and decades and decades. I believe Bill and Hillary Clinton are racist. I believe Joe Biden is a racist. So why is the racism in America looking different to us today than, say, with Joe Biden and Bill Clinton, to me, who were more dangerous because they're the racists and bigots we invite in our home. Let them spend a night.
Many people don't even recognize how pervasive racism is in this country. The fact that former Chief Justice Roger Taney in the Dred Scott case, as he was Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, came up with that classic line, a black man doesn't have any rights that a white man need give respect to. That's a fundamental core issue, as he and the then Supreme Court denied Dred Scott his freedom and reinforced the fact that African Americans were only worth 3/5 of a human being. That's at the core of this country. So this isn't new, and it's not a surprise.
Well, you know, the 3/5 of a human being only happened because in the South, where they didn't, the North, they didn't want to count the slaves as whole because it would give the South more representatives.
Absolutely true.
So, you know, so people try to make it seem like they try to say we were 3/5 of a human being. It's not what it was. It was just, it was the North who were trying to end slavery.
So let's take the Taney quote and take the 3/5 out. Let's not get into semantic gymnastics over the what and the why and the how of the 3/5 and the Missouri Compromise and the rest. Let's just stay with what Chief Justice Taney said.
Right? No,
right.
I agree with you.
That's the one that indicates what America's really about. As
1919, we come home from World War I on the floor of Congress. Congressmen say the greatest threat to America is the Negro soldier coming back believing he has the same inherent rights as a white man.
I hear you.
This is white man country.
Yeah, right.
So
have we come, you know, there's a congressman, Jim Costa, from the Central Valley, a dear friend of many years, came and lectured my class. And one of the things he said was, we're better than that. We're better than that. When is America going to wake up to the fact that we're better than what President Trump has been? And I say we're not better than that.
That's right. If we were better than that, Trump wouldn't be our president. We're going to come back. We have to do a real quick commercial break here. It's just for 30 seconds. We're going to come back. Mark T. Harris is my guest. I told you guys I was going to save the best for last. We're going to come back to this subject. You're checking out J. King Live, straight, no chaser.
The quality of your life, we've got you.
Want your high school diploma? We got you.
Want to obtain your Class A driver's license?
Or study to become a medical assistant?
Want to learn to work with children?
Or be prepared to work in an office setting? We got you.
Need childcare? We got you.
Need help with transportation?
Is independent study a better option for you? We got you.
Improve the quality of life for you and your family. And remember, we've got you.
All right, welcome back to J. King Live, straight, no chaser. I have a few questions for Mark, but I know this is about the time when Key Matthews comes out with questions or comments. So if you guys have any questions or comments, now is the time to write them in. She'll find them, she'll pluck them out, and she'll ask the question, is reparations possible?
Yes. It'll take some courage among the elected officials. That's why, you know, we need to have our issues like other communities have their hot button issues. We need to have our accountability issues, our list of accountability. And near the top, if not at the top of that list of accountability for electeds, should be taking a position consistent with reparations, in my opinion.
So let me give you I'm gonna give you my reparations plan quickly, okay? Mm-hmm. I believe every African American man, woman, and child should get $350,000 tax-free. Pay no taxes for 5 years. 25% down payment for a home. If you already own a home, 25% goes to the payoff purchase of your home. Free college, tuition for students. They have to pay for housing because they just got $350,000. We want to teach them some responsibility. Health care, 50% of your health care paid. If you have a job that pays for your health care, then you're giving them a break for having you as because now you have no cost for 5 years. The next 5 years you get 25% off. Again, if you have health care, it just helps your employer, and it helps you. You can't go on welfare for 10 years. If you have a child over 12 years old, 75% of that money goes into a trust fund until they turn 18. If you have a child under 12 years old, 50% of that money goes into a trust fund, 50% goes to the parents. You get a piece of property, piece of land, 1 acre, either commercial or residential. You get to pick. That is yours, tax-free, until for 10 years, and then you have to start paying taxes on it. If you're American, and you have to be an American descendant, African American descendant of a slave. It's not for black people; it's for African American descendants of slaves. If somebody commits a crime against you, or falsely accuses you of a crime, I should say, and it causes you harm, for falsely accusing you, they have to pay a fine, and that fine graduates based on how severe, and you get 50% of that fine, and it could be a possible jail time. There's a couple of other things, but I think that we have to have a real ask. And my question to you before we get to Key is, who do you think is more likely? I mean, no politics involved, just honestly. Who do you think would be more likely to be open to paying a debt owed to Americans of African descent, Trump or Biden?
I mean, it starts with a debt owed, you know, a recognition that the debt is owed. As you know, President Trump's talking about his platinum plan.
I call it the cheap aluminum
for
plan.
the black community. Yeah. And like I say, if you can't trust the messenger, you sure can't trust the message.
I mean, we never could trust the messenger.
Right.
Which of the two do you think would be more likely to make reparations?
It's easy for me to answer that. Neither.
Okay. Key Matthews.
We have a question from Jacqueline Stevens Ramsey on Facebook. She's asking, how do we the people get our concerns to those representing us in Washington, D.C.?
Every person in this country who is of voting age has the opportunity to vote for members of the House of Representatives. That's a great question. We have to not just vote, though. We have to hold them accountable. That means showing up at public meetings. That means coming to Washington, D.C. and meeting with them in their congressional office. I highly recommend that to people. Jay, one of the ways I started in the game was to be an intern for a member of Congress in Washington, D.C. I was 19 years old. So we have to go and we have to make sure that the same promises they make to us at home, they're actually living up to in Washington, D.C. So staying on top of them. And then at the end of the day, the ultimate is to do what happened to get AOC elected, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez in New York. If folks who are the incumbent aren't serving the needs of the people, then those folks need to go, and we need to get some new folks in.
We have another question from Sac Black Nation. Without a black agenda contract with blacks, why should we be motivated for either party?
I don't believe we should be motivated for either party. I'm a Democrat by habit, I always tell folks. I've been a Democrat my whole life. My first Democratic campaign was Bobby Kennedy in 1968. For President of the United States. I was 11 years old. Y'all do the math. And it was important to me, even as an 11-year-old, to support somebody who I believed in. I supported George McGovern after that. I've been on the progressive side of the party my whole life. But the reality is neither of the parties are, in my opinion, prioritizing the interests of the black community. Maybe it's time for us to have a third party. Maybe it's time for us to have a Black Lives Matter party, a national Black Lives Matter party. I mean, anything should be on the table because neither of these parties, in my opinion, are carrying forward an agenda that prioritizes the black community.
Gail Collins is asking, so if Kamala did nothing back then, what has changed that states she will do something now?
I don't know what you mean by nothing. I mean, very few people really know what Senator Harris's record was as district attorney first in San Francisco and then as attorney general. I know some things she did. People got mad at her because she held parents responsible for their kids being truant. And a lot of folks in the black community thought that was unfair. I completely supported that. Parents should have the responsibility of making sure that their kids are in school.
Yeah, but if you don't have a car,
and if their kids aren't in school, It's up to the parent to bear, in my opinion, that responsibility. That was something that she did. So again, it's a matter of whether you agree or disagree, but to say she didn't do anything, I think is not necessarily accurate. In terms of any prosecutor who has a record of doing what we would like them to do relative to our community in terms of bringing charges against rogue police officers who murder our folks.
That's when they say that's why people mean, when they say she didn't do nothing, that's what they mean.
Right.
Well, you know, if you're going to exact a punishment against a community, you should exact a punishment against the people who are supposed to serve and protect the community. And if you don't do that equally, it's like not doing nothing.
I hear what you're saying.
And either the people. Go ahead.
Won't the Electoral College be a factor in this election just as it was in 2016?
Absolutely will. I mean, one of the things I just taught my students last week is what the Electoral College is all about. It is an old and antiquated system that's unfair to Californians and any person who lives in one of the bigger states. It takes a state as small as Vermont or New Hampshire and puts them almost on a level playing field as a state as large as Texas or California.
But isn't that fair?
No.
I mean, listen, Mark, because then if you go by the popular vote, then all you just go to Florida, Texas, Illinois, California.
Yeah.
And you know what I mean? And what's the other fifth state? There's 5 states that you go to, and that's all you have to campaign in.
And win. And win those.
And win. Yeah, and win. Yeah. But what I'm saying is that, I mean, I don't know if it's, you know,
what's more fair or less fair? I agree with you on that. What's more fair? So people talk about the 2000 election and they look to Florida as being the one that cost Gore the election. The state that cost Gore the election was Tennessee. Tennessee has
which was his state. He lost his own state.
His daddy was the senator there before he was the senator there. 11 electoral college votes. If he had gotten those, he'd been president of the United States.
Look, Kennedy cheated. Giancana brought Kennedy, Illinois, and Daley. And Kennedy don't beat Nixon if he don't win in Illinois.
Historically accurate, what you said. Absolutely.
Go ahead.
How do we get financial literacy on Maxine Waters' plate? Are there things that we can do to make that a priority?
I tell you, I think what I have found of Congresswoman Waters, she served in Sacramento, as many people know, in the Assembly before going to Washington, D.C. She's not unapproachable. She's not inaccessible on this stuff. I think that Jay is right. I think that Jay is the head of the California Black Chamber and making a priority of his meetings with the Congresswoman when he goes to Washington, D.C. and making sure this stays on her plate. I mean, institutions and individuals affect other institutions. And I just don't think she would be unaccepting of a prioritization of this issue. I think she needs to be, if you will, kind of tenderized a little bit on it, and we need to do the job that we need to do to make sure she is.
She's been there for all them years. Why hasn't it been a priority? This is where I have an issue with leadership, Mark. Yeah. That our leadership, we won't call ourselves out. We won't say, you know, we dropped the ball on this. We really dropped the ball on financial literacy. And we need to do better. But even if she doesn't do it, even if she put the task force together, or she put the game in play, because I can't do everything. So I can only imagine what it is, you know, but that's why I have.
She's done a tremendous amount of things in the financial space, the regulatory space that affect discrimination against African Americans. She's worked with the Greenlining Coalition. I could call, if we had Key back in here, I could say right now that I tell my students, buying a house and having a 30-year mortgage is like a 30-year jail sentence. I honestly believe that. And even though right now we have interest rates at all-time lows, how do we know, how does anyone know that they're even going to be gainfully employed for 30 straight years without anything more than a 3-month interruption? The whole structure of a home mortgage, in my opinion, is whack and needs to be changed. So I have my opinion, others have their opinion. Maxine Waters, in the position she's in Congress, gets presented. Which one is correct in terms of financial literacy?
Listen, I mean, I think so. Financial literacy isn't about just owning a house. Financial literacy is being plugged into the system. 95% of African American small business owners are sole proprietors. 95%. That means you'd have to see 20 African American businesses before you saw one with at least one employee. For every 20, one with at least one employee. There is something systemically wrong in this country when we've had elected officials over and from year in, year out, and we've never addressed these issues. At least we should have grown to 80%, are sole proprietors. We're at 95%. By 2053, we're projected to be at zero wealth.
And you know what, Jay, that bothers me? I agree with you, and what bothers me about that is how inaccessible capital is for our community. We have a horrific problem of the inaccessibility. In order to
we're not financially. If we were financially literate, those things with capital wouldn't even be.
You could be as financially literate with a PhD and go to the bank and they turn you down.
Listen,
and they would take someone who's fresh in the country. Yes,
if you speculated on Bitcoin 13 years ago and spent $80, you'd have 1,000 coins.
You got 1 million of those stories, and I agree.
So
I've done some of that.
Yeah, so I'm just saying that financial literacy has to be. We wouldn't have a conversation about capital if we were as financially literate as we are as consumers. This conversation would be moot.
And it's financial literacy plus discipline. It's one
but
thing
I mean,
to know,
but I think
it's another thing to do.
I'm gonna tell you something. Those things go together, and I watch that in my group. That as people make money and they look at their money turn into capital, and they watch their capital grow, they don't even want to touch that because they're just in awe of the growth. Yes.
Is black a nationality? Is African American a nationality? Will we need to claim nationality to get reparations? Does the Constitution refer to us as property? Are we Moors?
Let me answer the last question first. The Constitution does not refer to us as property. It does not refer to black people, African Americans, those of African ancestry. None of that is property. That's the Constitution, literal interpretation of the Constitution. On your other question, I believe that blackness is melanin, honestly. I believe that there are black Latins who are black. There are other black folks throughout the world who are black. And so as far as I'm concerned, I wouldn't call it a nationality. I wouldn't call it a culture. I wouldn't call it an ethnicity. But it's not just a state of mind. That's how you get white folks claiming black identity through appropriation of black culture, and that's wrong. Black is black. We're making this more complicated than it is. When I stand next to a white man and the cop says, "Shoot that nigga," I think it's pretty simple to figure out who's black under those circumstances.
So, I was talking to somebody today. I'm not going to name the agency. But they called me and they said, "Jay, we need you back on this committee because you were making a difference, and and we wish you would come back on the committee because this was a white woman, and she said because I think you rationalize this thing a little easier, and I said we have racialized America." America is so racialized that everything is about race, and we're losing humanity. And I think where black people are missing the boat, and where you feel more comfortable with me, is I talk to you about the history before I tell you about the solution. I bring you the problem in an era that doesn't disrupt who you are and what you're doing right now. But it's in context. And the unfortunate part is black folk don't know their history, and we make assumptions that you do. And I said, have you ever done anything that you got away with and never wanted to bring it up again? And so when people bring it up, you sidestep it? And she said, yeah. I said, that's what America does when it comes to black people and racism in this country. Because you don't know about Ocoee, Florida. You don't know about Wilmington, North Carolina. You don't know about Tulsa, Oklahoma. And I said, right now, as I'm talking to you on the phone, I can feel your mind saying, what is he talking about? I said, in 1898, the only time in the United States that a U.S. government was overthrown is in Wilmington, North Carolina. And she said, really? I said, yeah. I said, do you know why it was overthrown? And she said, no. I said, because black men were in power. And you could overthrow that government. Because black men didn't have the same value as a white man. Had white men been in power, there would have been a National Guard and everybody else come. I said in Ocoee, Florida, all we wanted to do was vote because from 1906 to 1920 we can't vote. Now we finally get a chance to vote. The richest men in the county are black. The largest landowners are black. Do you know what happened to those folks? She said, no. I said, they wanted to vote, so they got killed. And the ones that didn't get killed were ran out. They said, you had your nigger asses out by sundown, or you all dead. I said, you know what happened to all those assets, all those businesses, all that land, all that money? And she said, no. I said, neither do they, because they had to get out before sundown. That was in 1920, 1921.
You know what, though, Jay, as I listen to you, you're historically accurate. And as I listen to you, I just think about how deep this goes. The Chinese Exclusion Act, the Asian Exclusion Act, Fred Korematsu's famous case in 1944 in the United States, Japanese internment. This country has had a history of treating people, treating indigenous people, so-called Native Americans, so-called American Indians the way that it has. This country has a lot to, in my opinion, reckon with, a lot to apologize for. And there's a linkage. This is why it was hard for me to answer the question about whether I consider black a nationality. I think there are shared interests among oppressed versus the oppressors. And I think there are a number of us who are similarly situated in the camp of the oppressed. Not all of them are African American. I don't know if my family would be considered. There is one identifying element of our family that will keep us in a second-class citizenship status as far as America is concerned. We're black. But economically, we're in a different place than a whole bunch of black folks and a whole bunch of white folks. So it's bigger than black, but it starts, in my opinion, with black. So I'm glad that question was asked a few minutes ago.
Mark, first of all, I want to say thank you. Thank you. This is our last show for this season. I did 8 shows in this season, and I didn't know what this would be like. It took me a few shows to get used to it. I'm used to doing Kings in the Morning, looking at comments, responding to people, muting people on the phone. So this was kind of difficult for me to get used to, and I'm just getting what you would call your sea legs. I'm just getting to it. We're going to start a new season in a couple of months, and I want to have you back.
I'd love to come back
because I want to talk to you about the presidency. And let me tell you guys who I think is going to win.
Yeah.
Okay. I think Donald Trump wins as president, and I'm going to tell you why. I just don't believe that Joe Biden is fit to be the president at this point when I look at him physically. I believe that the reason why the Democrats hide Joe Biden is because if there was ever a time that I thought that I saw early signs of dementia in a human being, I see early signs of dementia in Joe Biden. It's concerning to me. Now, if Joe Biden was in a healthier state, I might say he has a chance. But just the idea that they're hiding, I don't believe Kamala Harris has. Is it Kamala or Kamala?
Kamala.
I don't believe.
Kamala.
I don't believe that Kamala Harris feels any different than Hillary Clinton. I think she has the same kind of feeling. Disingenuous, not connective. When people make that extra effort to be a sister girl, Hillary did it with the hot sauce. Kamala is doing it with the Timberland boots, and I think that optically, just where we are so. And I think you got the young African American men, the young brown, Latino, Hispanic male that lean towards Trump, and people don't want to talk about it. I think we have done a disservice to young people from the Democratic Party standpoint by keeping them down and not allowing them to flourish, have a voice, and push up new, young, creative, inventive energy. And that's where you get somebody as outlandish and crazy as Donald Trump. And Donald Trump is as crazy as a Betsy bug. But if you didn't learn anything from Donald Trump, I hope what you did learn from him is that anybody can be president, and you don't have to be that smart. My name is Jay King. Good night. Thank you for tuning in to Jay King Live, straight, no chaser.
Jay King Live.